Chapter 20 of the original autobiographical novel 10 Years of Marriage by Su Qing, a female writer in the Republic of China. In this boring team I met Tu Piep Leon is a middle school teacher named Tong Yudoun is Colonel Z, an officer in his 40s. Tong Yudo is a countryman from Songjiang Zhongjingfell. He refused to enter the city for 8 years. Wo is willing to take off his hat to the Japanese. After this Victor I happily went to town for a stroll. He accidentally saw my waning moon. Very Ashamid. He was deeply moved. Later, he asked around for my address. He has an uncle who is a senior military staff officer in Shanghai. He went to Shanghai to find him live in his home. Then he came to see me on Lanzian Road. Big surprise in a rainy morning. Suddenly I heard someone knocking on the door. He jumped out of bed and opened the door. One is wearing a blue blouson. Middle-aged man walked in with an orange oilcloth umbrella under his arm. I thought he went to the wrong house. Then I asked, "Who are you looking for?" He bowed to me respectfully. "Is there a Mr. Su Qing here?" "I'm suspicious and I asked you which one you are." He still looked at his nose, and heart, and replied, "My surname is Tong. See the word in Tao because I envy Mr. Su's articles. So I came all the way from Songjiang to Shanghai to ask for a meeting." I laughed and said, "I don't dare to take it seriously. My surname is Summer. Tong, please sit down for a while. Let's talk after I'm fully dressed." What he said was ordinary. With local accent it also sounds quite strenuous. And he wasn't very organized when he spoke. He can do every little thing ever since Pengu opened the world. Even he himself was confused when he was talking about it. But I still listened to him patiently cause he is so sincere. His uncle wants to keep him working in the Shanghai government agency. Resolutely did not want to. Finally, I agreed to teach in Huaguang Middle School. From then on, we often communicated. Is not familiar with anything about Shanghai. Go out and buy something. He also asked me to accompany him. Sometimes I really don't have time. I told him to listen to the place names in detail. He seemed cowed. Ask again and again. Still don't dare to go alone. I said we'll talk about it when you're free. I secretly think that you don't have any money around you. Don't be afraid of people robbing you. You are not a woman either. I'm afraid someone will rape you. A manly man. Go out for a walk. Why are you so timid? It's just that I never said this to him. One day he decided to ask me out for dinner. Walk along Lansian Road. Didn't call for a carry. I'm embarrassed to say that I can't run anymore. Arrived near Shujiang Sichuan Restaurante. Remembered that I followed Zhao Ruiguo here before because the bodyguard came in and Askidi only know that there is only an umbrella seat left. He refused to go in. Agan ordered the driver to change direction. Drove to Jinkson Cantonese restaurant. It's like this scene is before my eyes. However, Zhao Ruiguo disappeared without a trace. Leave me alone and wandering here. But how could Tong Yudo know my thoughts? He caught a glimpse of a vegetable restaurant next to him. Then he shouted, "Let's go in and have a bowl of rice." I ate here with my school colleagues. The food was badly cooked. I also put a lot of oil in it. Although I think his words are very pure and respectable, there is always a feeling of sadness in my heart. Soon even his uncle knew about me. Specially invite me to come for dinner. There is a new military officer here from abroad. Introduced by his uncle. Just found out that he is Colonel Z. His figure can be said to be short and lean. When it comes to conversation, he is also proficient in calligraphy. Tong Yudo's uncle also said that he can compose old poems. He asked him for poem drafts to read. He copied 7 melody poems from memory. Asked me for advice. There is a saying in the novel, people age more easily than flowers. The end of the month is like a dream that is not always round and so lingering and pathos. Just like Li Yushani was deeply moved by it. So we talked about everything. He then asked me with concern about my daily life. I also briefly mentioned a lot of he had no choice but to live alone with my little daughter. Wait, after the banquet Tong Yudo sent me home. We talked about Colonel Z on the road. Tong Yudo said has no family, probably got separated in the chaos. He is a rare soldier. Tong Yudo said honestly fantasize about bloody battlefield. Such a military scholar gradually appeared in the gloomy foe is depressed. Can't imagine him being heroic. Struggle is a cruel thing. Is in pain, I think. But why doesn't he leave the team? Lack of a warm home. No soft words to comfort him. No one takes care of everything for him. It would be more convenient for him to live in the army. Is he prepared to live a wandering life like this? I don't want home or children. Don't want all kinds of tenderness and comfort. That's how he comes and goes naked without any worries. Willow sprouts again. Spring returns to the earthlingling is another inch taller. Wang Ma often suffers from cough. She always likes to say no with emotion. I'm oldie comforted her and said knowing Ma. However, I was also very anxious in my heart. Year after year pass, flowers fall and bloom, No matter how they bloom, they don't care about their temples. Isn't it going to turn into frost in a blink of an eye? Hey, it's because I have nothing to do in my free time I often chant his poems in a lonely dusky finally received his letter. There is very little in the letter and nothing to say. I only wrote to poems using ancient swords. It is written about one of the plum blossoms falling and the wild goose falling. Sitting on the back of Shigu lamp with raindrops 3,000 beautiful dreams. Spring is always there 12 palace walls are unknown therefore. There should be a number of lanterns article. Joy without sadness when gifting one's life and pass on bayx new leaves are not grown on the waste peach like a second. Distant mountains and near water willows containing smocketh old oriole crows and drops the elm money in spring. The long wind returns to Yangtze, bright moon shines in front of the window, silver phoenix flying in sacrifice makeup is still there if you don't become a golden lotus, it won't remain intact. There are so many flowers and branches in the dream. What can pity me when I live alone? Is this an escape from real life? Imagine a time far away suddenly started dreaming during the day. At the same time, the economy is struggling to make ends meet. Day by day we will only become poor. I am afraid to talk about daily necessities. Looking into the depths of the white clouds there seems to be a majestic palace. Have some plum blossoms on your forehead, beautiful woman whose body is buried in colorful costumes. Thee walks so quickly like a rainbow crossing the sky. Turn in a flash destroyed the hero riding on a tall white horse. Like Xiao Zilong played on the stage. The man I originally imagined to be worthy of admiration, I know to something one hopes for it must be something he can't actually get. For example, let's talk about myself. Married a young and beautiful husband at the age of 18. Of course, he loves me too. However, I always hate to resist. Life is too ordinary. It seems to have wronged my genius and my ambition to serve society. But I only look forward to having a comfortable and warm family. And the target is so hard to find. Nature plays tricks on people. Why is it so cruel? I think of those colorful clothing materials displayed in the windows of silk and satin companies. I often stand and stare. If the female companion thinks that she is trying to persuade me to make a purchase, she should buy one for your Lingling to wear. This kind of pink material is definitely a good choice for making clothes for her. They match very well. If I had known, I would no longer be qualified to wear red silk and green satin today. I hated when I was a bride. Why? Just add a blue cloth burqa? Because that is the characteristic of female students. Female students are noble and pure. That kind of thought. Only mainland middle school students with shaved heads and military training uniforms will sympathize with urban. Female students have already foresighted dressed up in colorful clothes. No different from a Doncherry. Remembered again the old maid Jokia is said that the lady was also very beautiful back then. There are many men pursuing her. Won't give an easy listed the top 10 conditions for Zeep at the age of 20 later. Time passed year by year. She knows that there aren't many people who meet this condition, then subtract one line from it every year so as to be easily obtained. Little did I know there was still now her parents, relatives and friends celebrated her 30th birthday. Only one of the 10 conditions she listed remains. What is this item? It clearly says man. It means that as long as it is a man she is willing to marry. However, we have to ask this man if he is willing. Although I am not so miserably, but we must try our best to find an ideal destination. But it's really not a bad idea. I often object to people saying that Miss So and so is romantic if you like to find more lovers, etc. A woman only needs one low very hope she can also take full responsibility for her never. As the ignorant people say like to find more lover she is in fact although often change meant it's a last resort. Maybe she has never met the person she loves at all. What if you really have a so-called lover? Even if she doesn't love him very much will also be unforgettably. Women who love him are all realists because it is difficult to find objects. So when I meet a slightly similar man, I grab him. Afraid of missing another opportunity, me put all kinds of imagination on his head so the united it doesn't matter to men at all. However, women discovered that he had too many weaknesses. When you feel like you can no longer be a burden, knew he was crying, said he was fooled. What was fooled by whom? Colonel Z finally came to Shanghai again. He brought a lot of local products from faraway places and found my home. What a shameful thought. He suddenly felt that it was inconvenient to live with Lingling. Then he said that he wanted to write something, keep the child with you for fear of making noisy. Smawang to take her to her cousin's father-in-law's house to stay for a few days. My cousin has no children of her own. Like her very mucklingling is cute and loving again. So her aunt made her a little sweater boti to Bizicolonel Z is wearing a neat suit. The leather shoes are polished. How does he look? Like a soldier who has been fighting for a long time. His attitude is gentle, speech is also elegantous if I had read many old books. He said life in the army was really monotonous. Carnivals are often held on weekends, but what's the point of this messy opportunity? He loves to chat with me most at night. I feel very calm. My temper becomes softer day by day. One day, he suddenly said to Mezimion gave him a house that he took over. He will return to the army soon. The house is empty and useless. Why don't you give it to me to live in? Most women are greedy for small profits, of course. I am no exception. If you say it, why is it so embarrassing? I can't help but feel happy in my heart. A few more days passed. He said that all the furniture in the house has been packed, but he's a rough guim, afraid I don't have enough artistic vision. I'd better go and see for myself. After you have arranged everything, go take your daughter back and live with her again. He was so considerate that he planned it for me. Just one drizzly evening came to pick me up in a car. The car passes through many wet streets. He wanted to speak, but Stopetty stared at him with a smile. Wait for him to speak. Finally, he said apologetically, word for word, he can only take over the house because it must be in my name. So I just had to say yes to them. What did you say about me? I'm afraid there's something wrong with the house. Can't help but ask anxiously. He bowed his head and said nothing. After a while, he raised his head, confessed to me and say I'm sorry. Fortunately, I will go back tomorrow. We had to say yes to them. You are my wife. I suddenly felt my face getting hot. Look away, smiled alone. He walked me into the Husethi. Inside has been tidied up completely new. Even the furniture, sofas, etc. seem to have been purchased recently. Only the tatami on the floor cannot be removed. We had to take off our shoes and go into the room. An Oriental girl brings tea. He said this area is very quiet. If you find it inconvenient to go, tea can also try to get you a car in the future. I quickly said that I dare not take it seriously. Over the years, I have become accustomed to living in seclusion. It's better to read some books quietly in the room. Accompanied me to each room and looked againly. The door lock has not been installed yet. He thought very carefully and said that it is better for you to assemble it yourself. You can feel more at ease at it at the end of the street. Soon it was getting dark. I said this after seeing it. Go back, smiled and said, haven't the quilts been prepared for you on the bed? All newly purchased that ensure cleanliness and comfort. He said it's scary to live here alone. It's better to bring Lingling with you some other time. He said that the Dongyang Empress lived downstairs. What are you afraid of? So he invited me out for dinner. I have to go out to find a friend after dinner. He said casually, sat down in a Cantonese restaurant. He called for wine. Did I say you drink well? He said it's not necessarily true, but people feel refreshed when happy events happen. Today I finally bought a small room for you. He can't help but feel happy in my heart. Will leave tomorrow morning. I'm afraid it's too late to say goodbye to Meizo. Just take a swig. I shook my head. No, I don't know how to drink, smiled and said, then drink less. For my sake, I'm embarrassed to have both just drank a little. It's already 9 o'clock after dinner. He said he would accompany me back to the new drama. I'm going to find a friend soon because it's getting late. Then please do it. No need to accompany my said. No, I'll accompany you to the door, then go find friend. She sighed. Arrived at the door. He wouldn't be able to rush forward and knock on the door. Dongyang Nianji came out and opened the door. When I was about to say goodbye to him, he has already stepped in. Sit, turn on the lights at the head of the stairs. Then he kindly came over to help me and told me to be careful when walking up the stairs. I said I would get up there. Missile Fempress Dongyang has already closed the door. He said you might as well let me accompany you upstairs to talk for a while. I was too embarrassed to push him downstairs. I thought that since he had the intention to go see a friend, it won't last long. So I went into the room with him. My mother also brought me face wash and tea. The beds are all Madathan. He said goodbye and went downstairs to sleep. He happily sat opposite me, talked to me about all things house renovation. I also admire his carefulness and thoughtfulness. I really don't know how to thank you, he say, since after a while. I thought to myself why he hasn't gone to see his friends yet. Everything is ready for food use in the room. It was just missing a clock. I tried to urge him several times, but I held back several times. Finally, I hinted to him that most people in Shanghai sleep very late. What about your friend's house? You just said you were going to find someone. They are probably waiting for you. He immediately thought about it and stretched his body and said, oh, really, I should go too. You can go to bed early. As he spoke, he took out a watch from a pocket and looked at it. He couldn't help but exclaimed, oh, it's already 11 o'clock. This alley is locked at 10 o'clock every night. What should I do? It was beyond my expectation. I couldn't help but get anxious. I asked him whether he should give some money to the guard of the first alley and ask him to open it again. He shook his head and said that it might be difficult. There was an order from above not to let people in and out without permission. They would never dare to take such a heavy responsibility. Was he unintentional? Or it was a deliberate trap? I was confused. He saw that my face was not right. He stood up and said, "Don't worry. Let me go down and ask Dong Yang Niang to see if there is anyone in the cave who is willing to let me stay overnight." I didn't say anything. He went downstairs with a thump. I only heard Dong Yang Niang said to him, "Sir, it's so late. Are you still going out? The iron gate at the entrance of the alley has been locked." His voice replied, "Oh, really? It's useless to go out now." After saying that, he ran upstairs again with a thump. "Oh, I'm sorry. I can only ask for your grace. Let me lie on the sofa in the pavilion for one night," he said to me apologetically. His attitude was very serious. He didn't seem to be joking at all. I suddenly remembered that this house was originally his. Dong Yang Niangji down there didn't know the relationship between us. How could I embarrass him? I must make him stand outside the door in the closed road for one night. So I did it. I could only nod vaguely, which was considered as my agreement. He said good night to me. I told him that if that was the case, you could take a thin blanket. He smiled and said, "No. I had lived in the army for a long time, and I was careless about sleeping. I was no longer polite, and said goodbye." I closed the door and went to sleep, but the door was not locked. I couldn't help but feel a strange feeling in my heart. Then I felt that I shouldn't judge him with a mean heart. I have known him for half a month. I have always been well behaved. He thought highly of me, and wanted to talk to me for a few more words. Therefore, he missed the time to visit his friend. This is also a long-lasting love. How can I force him to say that he did it on purpose? I'd better sleep well. Tomorrow morning, he will leave Shanghai. I have to see him off. The night is blurry and I am tired. I fell asleep unconsciously. Later, I suddenly heard some noises in front of the bed. I was afraid that I heard it wrongly. I was a little scared. I dared not open my eyes to say a word. When I was trying to fall asleep, I suddenly felt a furry thing approaching me. I opened my eyes and saw that he was wearing a pure white wool sweater. He was bending down and smiling. I was shocked. I wanted to shout, but I felt that I had no face. Besides, people didn't know. They thought we were really a couple. Who would knock on the door in the middle of the night to deal with the couple shouting? I'm afraid even the Queen of Dongyang would ignore it. What if he got angry and pulled out his pistol? I'd better persuade him politely. "Colonel Z, why did you come here?" He kissed my forehead gently and said, "I'm cold. Let me get you a quilt." "I don't want what you want. I want you." He began to force me. His body was so strong and passionate. Over time, I didn't care. But I always feel unhappy about him playing tricks on me, instead of saying it. "Why didn't you ask for it properly?" I asked if you would agree. He asked. "Maybe," I said. "Anyway, it's much better than forcing. Please forgive me," he said, and started kissing me again. Soldiers are not worthy of love. They don't know how to make the other person happy. They just strongly demand to satisfy themselves. They may be prostitutes. They take her in one moment and throw her away in another moment. So they run their own way. They risk their lives. Even their lives are inexplicable. How can they talk about lingering feelings? The relationship between the two sexes is a harmonious combination. However, if you make progress on your own and never contact others, isn't this also an insult? Why should I be insulted by him? For no reason? Why should I be insulted by him? Oh, since I was so careless. The next morning, I was sleeping. He woke me up and said he was leaving. I stayed in Shanghai for too long. There were several orders from above to urge the military court to handle the case. They were very fierce. Goodbye. He had already put on his clothes. He kissed me and left. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. I ignored him again. When we got to the door, he turned around and told me that there were some expenses for you to put in the drawer. I would pick up your little daughter today and live with you. I would come back to see you soon. There was no responsible word. There was no attachment. He left and his purpose was achieved. He left peacefully. But what about me? I would never want to marry him. He is such a rootless person. I don't know his family background. Maybe he already has a wife and children. How can I stay with him? Oh, I am so useless. There is no place for politeness or perfunctory in such matters. Maybe he looks down on me, thinking that I am so casual, so worthless. Why can he be rude to me? I want to sue him. However, this will not be good for my reputation. Forget it. I got up silently from the bed. My head was dizzy. Dong Yang had helped me wash and dress. She brought me some snacks. I shook my head and said I didn't want to eat. She took them away carefully. I closed the door angrily. I thought of writing a long letter to scold him. However, after saying it over and over again, I always felt that the wrong words were not appropriate. In the end, I had to write a note saying please never come to me again. There was no signature below. I gave it to Dong Yang. Yi told her that the money was in the drawer. In fact, I had never even checked how much there was, so I left the house angrily. Prepare to never go back. Sky is gloomy, me heart is gloomy too. If Lingling is at her aunt's house, I should go to Lanzian Road to clean up the room first and take a car to pick them up. When I got to my room, the newspaper had been stuffed in through the crack of the door. It fell on the Grundy, slowly lifted it up and read it. Oh, my God, the first piece of news that caught my eye was that Prime Minister Kim was dead. I recalled the night of feasting and revelry was so bold and sincere. The prosperity it turned out to be a dream in an instant's life so unpredictable. His life was unfortunate, now everything is over. They passed is also counted. The endless sorrow of his story lay quietly on the bed. He felt my heart suddenly became empty. It seems that nothing is enough to resent, but I have nothing to miss. He will live quietly then quietly fall into the arms of death. Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.